In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, there is a Roman temple complex that hides something ancient Rome never wanted you to see. Most tourists come to Baalbek to admire the towering columns of the Temple of Jupiter. They take their photos, read about Roman engineering prowess, and leave thinking they have seen another impressive ruin from the glory days of the empire. But they are looking at the wrong thing. Beneath those Roman columns, underneath the temples that get all the attention, there is a foundation that should not exist. We are talking about stone blocks weighing up to 1,650 tons. That is heavier than 3 fully loaded 747 jumbo jets stacked together. And these are not rough boulders. They are precision-cut rectangular megaliths, fitted so perfectly that a sheet of paper cannot slide between them. The Romans built incredible things: the Colosseum, the Pantheon, aqueducts that still carry water today. But the foundation at Baalbek? That is something else entirely. And the more closely engineers examine it, the more one disturbing question emerges. Did the Romans actually build this foundation? Or did they just build on top of something they found? Baalbek sits about 85 kilometers northeast of Beirut, in a fertile valley that has been inhabited for millennia. The Romans knew it as Heliopolis, the city of the sun. They transformed it into one of the empire's most ambitious religious complexes, building temples to Jupiter, Bacchus, and Venus that rivaled anything in Rome itself. The Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek once featured 54 columns, each 22 meters tall. Today, only 6 remain standing, but they are still among the tallest columns in the Roman world. The entire complex showcases classic Roman architectural elements, including Corinthian capitals, detailed friezes, and massive courtyards designed to inspire awe in worshippers and visitors alike. For centuries, scholars attributed the entire site to Roman engineering. After all, the Romans occupied the area around 15 BC, and construction of the temple complex began under Emperor Augustus. The historical record seemed clear. This was a Roman achievement, period. But here's where things get interesting. The foundation supporting these Roman temples, the actual platform on which everything sits, is constructed using a completely different technique. While the Roman structures above use relatively standard-sized blocks that Roman engineering could handle, the foundation layer uses stones so massive that they dwarf anything the Romans are known to have moved anywhere else in their empire. This is the part that doesn't make it into most guidebooks. Let's talk about the trilithon, 3 stone blocks that form part of the western wall of the podium supporting the Temple of Jupiter. Each block measures approximately 19 meters long, 4.2 meters high, and 3.6 meters deep. The weight? Around 800 tons each. Some estimates push closer to 1,000 tons, depending on the exact density of the limestone. To put that in perspective, the largest stones used in the Great Pyramid of Egypt weigh about 80 tons. The trilithon blocks are 10 times heavier. The stones at Stonehenge weigh roughly 25 tons. The trilithon makes them look like children's building blocks, but it gets worse, or better, depending on your perspective. In the quarry, about 800 meters away from the temple complex, there is a stone called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, or Hajar al-Hibla in Arabic. It is still attached to the bedrock, abandoned mid-extraction. This single stone measures approximately 20.5 meters long, 4 meters high, and 4.5 meters wide. The weight estimate is 1,000 tons minimum. Then, in 2014, archaeologists discovered something beneath it. Another stone block, even larger, was estimated at 1,650 tons. They found a third massive stone nearby as well. These were not random rocks. They were deliberately shaped, precision-cut, megalithic blocks that someone intended to transport to the temple site. Think about what that means. Someone quarried these stones. Someone cut them with precision. Someone had a plan to move them nearly a kilometer and then lift them into position. Now, here is the modern comparison that should make you pause. The largest crane in the world today the Taisun crane in China, can lift about 20,000 tons. It is a massive fixed installation. Mobile cranes max out around 1,200 tons under optimal conditions on flat, prepared ground. The ancient builders at Baalbek were working with no steel cables, no hydraulic systems, no wheels. The terrain made them useless anyway. No documented pulleys of sufficient scale, and Bronze Age or early Iron Age tools at best. And they did not just move these stones. They positioned them 7 meters above ground level, fitted them together with millimeter precision, and integrated them into a foundation platform that has survived multiple earthquakes for over 2,000 years. The precision is what really confuses engineers. The trilithon blocks do not just sit on top of each other. They interlock with the surrounding masonry using a technique that requires each stone to be cut with extreme accuracy. The joints between the megaliths are so tight that you cannot insert a piece of paper between them. No mortar, no filler, just stone on stone. Dr. Erhard Kepler, a German engineer who studied the site, noted that the blocks show evidence of having been cut with saws or wire systems that could handle tremendous pressure and maintain straight lines across meters of solid limestone. The problem is that no evidence exists of the Romans possessing such technology. The tool marks do not match Roman techniques. When Romans cut stone, they left characteristic patterns from their chisels and picks. The Baalbek foundation stones show different marks, smooth faces suggesting abrasive cutting or techniques we do not associate with ancient Roman quarrying. Then there is the transportation mystery. The quarry sits 800 meters southwest of the temple platform, across terrain that is not particularly flat. How do you move an 800-ton block across uneven ground using only rope, wooden rollers, and human or animal power? Some researchers have suggested they used a system of rollers made from logs. Let us do the math on that. An 800-ton stone would require rollers made from the hardest available wood, likely cedar of Lebanon. Each roller would need to be at least 1 meter in diameter to support the weight distribution. You would need continuous replacement because the rollers would crack and splinter under the load. And you would need to constantly relay them from back to front as the stone advanced. Even if this were theoretically possible, and engineers remain skeptical, you would need thousands of workers pulling in perfect coordination. We are talking about 10,000 to 40,000 laborers, depending on whose calculations you trust, all working in synchronized teams with communication systems we have no evidence for. And then, somehow, they lifted these stones 7 meters into the air and positioned them with millimeter accuracy. The feat looks, to modern engineers, near impossible. The Romans were masters of engineering, but their documented achievements do not include anything remotely approaching this scale. The largest stones they moved for other projects, like the columns for Trajan's column or the obelisks brought from Egypt, weighed at most 300 tons, and those projects are well documented as extraordinary undertakings that pushed Roman engineering to its limits. The Baalbek foundation blocks are nearly 3 times heavier than Rome's most ambitious stone-moving projects. Yet we have no Roman records describing how they accomplished this feat. No boastful inscriptions, no engineering diagrams, no historian chronicling the miracle. Just silence. This is where the conventional story starts to crack. The Romans were obsessed with documenting their achievements. They carved inscriptions everywhere, wrote detailed histories, and made sure everyone knew who built what and when. The Colosseum? We know it was commissioned by Vespasian, completed by Titus, and finished in 80 AD. The Pantheon? Commissioned by Agrippa, rebuilt by Hadrian around 126 AD. Roman engineering pride was legendary. So where are the records for the Baalbek Foundation? There are Roman inscriptions at Baalbek, sure, but they reference the temples above, not the foundation platform. No emperor takes credit for moving the trilithon. No engineer's name is recorded. No contemporary historian mentions the incredible feat of placing stones weighing 1,000 tons. Pliny the Elder wrote extensively about Roman engineering marvels. Vitruvius documented construction techniques in minute detail. Neither mentions the Baalbek megaliths. This silence is deafening. What we do have are later Roman additions to the site: smaller stones, conventional construction techniques, typical Roman architectural elements. It is as if the Romans found a pre-existing platform and built their temples on top of it, adding their signature style to the upper structures while leaving the massive foundation untouched. Some archaeologists argue the foundation is Roman, built during the 1st century AD as part of the temple complex construction. But this theory has problems. If the Romans built the foundation, why use a completely different construction technique than they used everywhere else? Why create an engineering challenge for themselves that exceeded anything they attempted in Rome, the empire's capital? And why the abandoned stones in the quarry? The stone of the pregnant woman and its neighbors suggest an abrupt halt to construction. Something stopped the work midway through the project. The stones were shaped, ready for transport, and then just left there, abandoned, for 2,000 years. This pattern of abandonment suggests a civilization that disappeared or collapsed before completing their work. When the Romans arrived centuries or even millennia later, they found these massive foundation stones already in place and built their temples on top of them, much like later cultures built on top of ruins throughout the ancient world. Archaeological evidence suggests human habitation at Baalbek dates back at least 9,000 years. That is 7,000 years before the Romans arrived. The site was sacred long before Jupiter got his temple. Phoenician and Canaanite cultures occupied the area for millennia. They called it Baalbek, the city of Baal. When the Greeks arrived, they associated it with sun worship and called it Heliopolis. The Romans adopted this name and built their temple complex. But none of these known cultures, Phoenician, Canaanite, or Greek, possessed the technology to move 1,000-ton stones either. So, if the Romans did not build the foundation, who did? Some researchers point to dating inconsistencies in the stonework. The massive foundation blocks show weathering patterns that appear far more extensive than the Roman structures above them. They suggest exposure to the elements for potentially thousands of years longer. There is also the matter of construction philosophy. The Roman structures were built to be seen, to impress, to showcase imperial power. They are decorated, proportioned for visual impact, designed for maximum effect on viewers. The megalithic foundation is functional to the extreme. No decoration, no inscriptions, no aesthetic considerations, just massive stones fitted together with engineering precision for one purpose: creating a stable platform that would last forever. This suggests different builders with different priorities, separated by significant time. The alternative timeline goes something like this. An unknown civilization with lost techniques, possibly during the Bronze Age or even earlier, created the megalithic foundation. They had knowledge we have lost, possibly including an advanced understanding of leverage, counterweights, or construction methods that left no trace. Their work was either interrupted or completed, then abandoned. Centuries or millennia later, successive cultures, Phoenician, Greek, Roman, found these foundations and built upon them, each adding their own layer but never achieving the same engineering sophistication as the original builders. This would explain the silence in Roman records. They were building temples on a foundation they inherited, not one they created. It would explain the different techniques, and it would explain why the most impressive engineering feat at Baalbek gets no credit from the culture that supposedly achieved it. In recent years, new technology has revealed details that earlier archaeologists missed. 3D scanning of the megalithic stones has shown that they are not just precisely cut. They demonstrate knowledge of load distribution and seismic resistance that seems beyond what we would expect from any ancient culture in the region. The way the stones interlock actually makes the structure more stable during earthquakes, allowing slight movement without collapse. Lebanon sits on a seismically active fault line. Multiple strong earthquakes have struck the region over the millennia. The Roman columns above have toppled multiple times, and only 6 of the original 54 Jupiter columns remain standing. The megalithic foundation has not budged. Not a single one of those massive stones has shifted or cracked. Modern engineers studying the site have attempted to replicate the construction using period-appropriate technology. The consensus is clear: it cannot be done. Not with the tools available to Bronze Age or Roman-era builders. The precision alone would require equipment they did not possess. In 2014, the discovery of 2 additional massive stones in the quarry attracted renewed attention. These were not just big rocks, they were precisely shaped for architectural purposes, suggesting whoever cut them intended to transport and use them. The fact that they remain unfinished points to a sudden interruption of the project. Recently, ground-penetrating radar has revealed additional foundation structures beneath the visible stones, suggesting the platform goes deeper than previously thought. There may be more megalithic construction underground, hidden for millennia. UNESCO designated Baalbek a World Heritage Site in 1984, but the designation primarily focuses on the Roman ruins, barely mentioning the megalithic foundation that makes everything else possible. So what are the explanations currently on the table? The Roman theory maintains the Romans built everything at Baalbek, including the megalithic foundation. They argue Roman engineering was more advanced than we give it credit for, and that the lack of documentation is simply a gap in the historical record. However, this does not explain why the Romans never attempted anything similar anywhere else in their vast empire, or why they would use completely different techniques at Baalbek than at every other temple complex they built. The Phoenician theory suggests the Phoenicians, who occupied Lebanon before the Romans, built the foundation. They were known as skilled builders and traders. But again, we have no Phoenician structures anywhere else that approach this scale. Their known construction techniques do not match what we see at Baalbek's foundation. The lost civilization theory proposes that an earlier, more technologically sophisticated culture built the megalithic foundation, possibly during the Bronze Age or even earlier. This civilization had engineering knowledge that was subsequently lost when their culture collapsed or disappeared. Later cultures inherited the site and built upon it without understanding how the original foundation was constructed. The inherited foundation theory is a variation that suggests the Romans deliberately chose Baalbek precisely because a megalithic foundation already existed there. Building a massive temple complex from scratch would be incredibly expensive and time-consuming. Finding a pre-existing platform that could support enormous structures would save years of work and countless resources. This theory elegantly explains why the foundation technique differs from Roman methods, because it was not Roman work. The alternative technology theory proposes that ancient builders possessed lifting and moving technologies we have not rediscovered, perhaps acoustic levitation, advanced counterweight systems, or other methods that left no archaeological trace. While this sounds fringe, many ancient technologies were indeed lost and only rediscovered centuries later. Damascus steel, Roman concrete, Greek fire, all examples of ancient knowledge that disappeared. The honest answer: nobody knows for certain. What we know for certain is this: at Baalbek, beneath Roman temples that have been thoroughly studied and documented, sits a foundation made of the largest worked stone blocks ever moved by human hands. These blocks were quarried with precision, transported across difficult terrain, lifted 7 meters into the air, and positioned so perfectly that the joints between them are nearly invisible. Modern engineers, with all our technology, would struggle to replicate this feat. We could do it barely, using our most powerful mobile cranes and precise surveying equipment. But it would be an extraordinary undertaking, requiring months of planning and millions of dollars in equipment. Someone did it thousands of years ago with tools that should not have been capable of the task. The Romans built magnificent structures all over their empire, but they never attempted anything approaching the scale of the Baalbek foundation stones anywhere else. If they could move blocks of 1,000 tons, why not showcase that ability in Rome itself? Why not build every major temple on megalithic foundations? The silence in historical records is not just puzzling, it is the loudest thing about Baalbek. This is not myth, this is not legend. You can fly to Lebanon, visit Baalbek, and touch these stones yourself. You can measure them. You can see where they were quarried. You can stand beneath the trilithon and feel genuinely small in a way that has nothing to do with spiritual awe and everything to do with the basic physics of what you are looking at. Something extraordinary happened at Baalbek. Whether it was Romans with lost techniques, an earlier civilization with advanced knowledge, or builders whose methods we have not understood yet, the foundation beneath those familiar Roman temples represents a capability that challenges our assumptions about ancient engineering. The greatest trick at Baalbek is not how they moved the stones. It is how they convinced everyone to look at the Roman columns above, while ignoring the impossible foundation beneath. What do you think? Visit Baalbek if you can. Stand beneath those stones. Look at the precision. Feel the weight of the mystery. Then try to explain it away.